The Moral Molecule, The Source of Love and Prosperity, by Paul Zak. Performed by Paul Zak. Introduction. Vampire Wedding. It was a lovely day for a wedding, the English sun peeking from behind English clouds, as the guests gathered in their finest. The ceremony was going to be at Hunsham Court, a Victorian manor house out in Devon, and it was set to begin in 10 minutes. I was supposed to have shown up an hour ago. I parked my rented Vauxhall in the gravel courtyard, left the engine running, jumped out in my lab coat for an immediate reconnoiter, then commandeered a guest to help me carry in the 150-pound centrifuge and 30 kilos of dry ice I'd brought with me in the car. With a second trip, I carried in the syringes, 156 pre-labeled test tubes, tourniquets, alcohol preps, and Band-Aids that I'd shipped from California. The plan I'd worked out with Linda Geddes, the bride, was to take 2 samples, one blood draw immediately before the vows and one immediately after, from a cross-section of friends and family in attendance. Within the wedding party itself, Linda's father was the only holdout. The mother of the groom had been ill, so we gave her a pass. Now, taking blood at weddings is not a long-standing tradition in this part of England, or anywhere else that I know of. In this case, the bride was a writer for the Neuroscientist who had been following my research. She was also known for throwing herself into her stories gonzo style. One day, out of the blue, she invited me to fly across the Atlantic to see her get married, but it wasn't because we'd become such close pals. She wanted me to run an experiment to illustrate a point. Just for fun, she wanted to see if the emotional uplift of her wedding would alter the guest's level of oxytocin, not to be confused with the often abused painkiller OxyContin, the chemical messenger I've been studying for the past several years. Oxytocin is known primarily as a female reproductive hormone, and usually it's associated less with wedding vows and champagne than with what, in an earlier time, often happened 9 months after. Oxytocin controls contractions during labor, which is where many women encounter it as Pitocin, the commercially available synthetic version doctors inject in expectant mothers to induce delivery. Oxytocin is also responsible for the calm, focused attention mothers relish on their babies while breastfeeding. Then again, oxytocin is well represented, we hope, on wedding nights because it helps create the warm glow both women and men feel during sex, or a massage, or even a hug. Linda hadn't reached out to me because of anything new I had to say about oxytocin as the birth hormone or the cuddle hormone, but because of an entirely different role I discovered for it. My research had demonstrated that this chemical messenger, both in the brain and in the blood, is, in fact, the key to moral behavior, not just in our intimate relationships, but also in our business dealings, in politics, in society at large. Which is a point, I realize, that might take some getting used to. Am I actually saying that a single molecule, and, by the way, a chemical substance that scientists like me can manipulate in a lab, accounts for why some people give freely of themselves and others are cold-hearted bastards? Why some people cheat and steal and others you can trust with your life? Why some husbands are more faithful than others? And, by the way, why women tend to be more generous and nicer than men? In a word, yes. Beginning in 2001, my colleagues and I conducted a number of experiments showing that when someone's level of oxytocin goes up, he or she responds more generously and caringly, even with complete strangers. As a benchmark for measuring behavior, we relied on the willingness of the people being tested to share real money in real time. To measure the increase in oxytocin, we took their blood and analyzed it. Money, as everybody knows, comes in conveniently measurable units, nickels and dimes, 10s and 20s, which meant that we were able to quantify the increase in generosity by the amount someone was willing to share. We were then able to correlate these numbers with the increase in oxytocin found in the blood. Later, to be absolutely certain that what we were seeing was not just an association, but true cause and effect, we infused synthetic oxytocin into our study subjects' nasal passages, the next best thing to shooting it directly into their brains. As for cause and effect, we found that we could turn the behavioral response on and off like a garden hose. But what our work demonstrated...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?